It is our favorite time of the week again. Time for hashtag Rising Qs, where we get to answer your questions. All right, Saagar, what's up first?
Okay, let's throw the first one up there on the screen. How much, if at all, do you think that the upcoming debates will sway the remaining undecided voters? Do you think the fact that people started voting weeks before the first debate will have an impact? So look, Jimmy, according to political science research, even in normal elections, and they've done this, regression analysis like every time, it has almost no impact on the election. I think the last time around it might have was 1984, whenever Ronald Reagan was like, I will not make my opponent's age an issue in this campaign, and his youth and inexperience. That was it, because voters actually had a decent amount of concern over whether Reagan was too old for the job. Quaint, considering he was like 74. And now both candidates are actually either that age or older this time around. So no, I don't think it's going to have anything to do with it. We have said here now for months, the election is out of Joe Biden's hands and it's out of Donald Trump's hands. It is all about macro political events.
Yeah.
So like the Black Lives Matter protests, coronavirus cases, whether they go up or down, they have some marginal input in how they handle these things. But those macro trends have way more to do with their re-elections than anything that these candidates do themselves.
I agree. The one thing I would say, if Joe Biden just completely melted down, you'd have to have something on the level of just a total catastrophic failure, and then maybe it would have some impact. But also, there are very few undecided voters. It's like a vanishingly slim number who haven't made up their minds. Now, look, it's close enough that if all of those people basically go in one direction, then it could significantly shift the outcome of the election. But if it's just kind of a normal debate, like nobody clearly melts down or has some dramatically bad moment, then, yeah, I don't think it really makes that much of a difference.
All
right, the second one, if Democrats win a Senate majority and McConnell wins his Senate race, thank you, Chuck Schumer and Amy McGrath. What are the chances of the Republicans having a new Senate leader? If so, who do you and Saagar believe would be McConnell's successor? McConnell is not
He's not going anywhere.
He will, until he retires.
He already said that. He's like, I'm not going to not be the leader.
No, until he retires. And look, if you're just looking for like a pure power player Machiavelli, there is no one better than Mitch McConnell on that metric of just like raw power grabbing and maneuvering and strategy. That man built the Republican Party in Kentucky, and there is no one savvier in terms of the political dark arts.
Nothing changing. All right, last question. Currently, we are seeing how the death of RBG affects the left and the right. This kind of polarization isn't new. In your opinion, what were the top political moments, events in the last decade that have led us to our current day hyper-partisanship? By the way, centrism still kind of sucks. Totally
Fair.
agree on. What do you think,
Okay, so I thought about a couple of different moments, although they're not really in the last decade. They actually have their roots, in my view, further back. So Steve Kornacki at MSNBC actually makes this case, and I think he's right, that in the 90s, Newt Gingrich really pioneered a kind of different approach to politics that was more about like attacking your opponents as evil, anti-American. It was like language that was used that was different than what had been used in politics before. And at the same time, he was the master of using the C-SPAN cameras. Remember this? The chamber, a lot of times when they're giving these speeches and whatever, like it's basically empty, but you can't see that. All you can see is like the person in front of the camera. And so he was a mastermind at like exploiting the media this way. And so that's one of my other pieces is like, and this is the Matt Taibbi thesis, cable news and the need for ratings hour after hour after hour without a clear galvanizing national enemy. What they've decided to do is like to make each other the enemy. So that's the way that you gin up ratings is like, on CNN or MSNBC, hour after hour after hour of Republicans are bad. On Fox, it's the opposite of Democrats. Like they've turned the citizenry into the enemy themselves. And then the other thing is just, there's been this long process after the civil rights era of basically a shaking out of the political parties and a realignment so that it used to be there was overlap between the parties. There were conservative Democrats, there were liberal Republicans, and so it wasn't just completely like these ones over here and these ones over there, which allowed for coalitions and deal making that were across the aisle and less just completely divided. Politics was less strictly national. There was more of a local element to it. And so I would point to kind of all of those things. The bottom line is the nationalizing of our politics has made it sort of completely tribal.
That's right. And I actually put less agent. I believe much more in structures than I think about people within them. I would say, and this again, it's not really an answer because it's not the last decade, but I would say Iraq, financial crisis. That was it. If you want to go back 20 years, I would put PNTR with China, Iraq, and the financial crisis. I think all those three things. You could take away Fox, you could take away Newt Gingrich and all those things. We'd still live in a deeply divided country. And that is just how it was always going to be whenever you have mass separation of working class Americans from financial elites who become dramatically more powerful. The players themselves are almost irrelevant whenever it comes to that. That was a recipe for what we live in today. It's just we're kind of just living with the consequences of what East Coast, West Coast alliance and big cities alliance against rural Americans who both have very discrete and different policy outcomes that would benefit them. That's just how it is. So that's what I think it contributes. Yeah, and cynical politicians recognizing that they can just exploit these cultural differences and not have to actually do anything. Yeah, that's the nationalization of politics, where it doesn't matter whether your individual politician is any good. As long as they're on your team, that's all that ultimately counts. That's it.
All right, thanks for watching. We're going to have more content for you later today.